Hey, Detoxers. Welcome to the Disinfo Detox, where media literacy meets the headlines. We are the Media Literacy Wrecking Crew. I'm Nolan Higdon, joined as always by our resident philosopher, Dickie,
What's up, detoxers?
and Sydney Sullivan.
Hey, detoxers.
All right, and for this episode, we're going to kick things off by talking about the American Eagle ad with Sydney Sweeney.
I saw a phenomenal AI recreation of this really famous Asian American woman, and hers is "My jeans are yellow," and she's like someone recreated a whole AI of it, and it was pretty great.
And so, for folks who don't know, Sydney Sweeney, who's blue-eyed, blonde hair, which is important to note, which I'll explain in a second, was in an American Eagle ad, kind of playing on the word jeans, the sort of DNA code of jeans and the jeans you wear, saying she has great blue jeans, looking at her blue eyes, which I assume was some advertising exec's attempt to be funny that jeans can mean two things, but it was interpreted by a lot of folks as kind of a eugenicist argument, right? That there are this idea of perfect genes, and said genes are blonde-haired, blue-eyed women. I don't know. Oh, by the way, we should add this note too, because Trump seemed happy about this. Turned out Sydney Sweeney was also a registered Republican, so that something that Trump touted. But I don't know. But what did you guys make of it? Do you think this is kind of another liberal woke freak out, or do you think there's some there?
Uh, I don't know, Dickie. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I'm like, the freak out alone. I'm like, come on, the planet's on fire, wages are decreasing, like, bunch of war going on. Far more important things to ask. But I also think there is, it was a catchy play on the word, as you mentioned, Nolan. But there is something about it that the time that we're in with Trump, like the people are like, we can finally say, let's, we can finally use pretty crude language. So there is something in our I guess zeitgeist about controversy and how that sells. So I think that American Eagle was being intentional. Like, they knew the pot they were stirring. So I don't think it's necessarily like a unwarranted freak out, because they're definitely, I feel like they think that this is gonna, you know, good or bad publicity is it will sell. So I think that there's definitely a little there. But I'm also like, really, we're getting all huffy about this. There's so many other things to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that point. I think that was one of the things I was kind of thinking of. If and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I thought if you release that ad in say like 2012, I don't think you would get the response you're getting now. I think the context when you've got Elon Musk doing like Hail Hitler salutes, and you've got that kid at the Jubilee debate. Well, I guess he's an adult. I shouldn't say him kid, but that adult at the Jubilee debate who celebrated the fact he's a fascist, said it out loud, celebration, and now giving the Hail Hitler salute. I've seen it at comedy shows, on shows like Kill Tony and stuff. I think with that context, that adds to the anxiety over the ad, where I don't think in 2012 maybe you would have that anxiety. I don't know. But what do you guys think? Sydney, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, it's hard too because I feel like in my head I'm going back to media literacy moments and kind of what we've talked about when it comes to creating messaging, and that always people are aware of their creation of messaging. And someone online made a joke that I thought was very clever, which is the fact that if somebody on this team like was diverse or had a diverse background, someone would have caught this. Like somebody would have known that this was a bad idea. And I kind of agree with it in that sense, that I feel like somebody either dropped the ball or somebody knew what they were doing. And I think that's where I kind of fall into the category of maybe this was a little bit intentional. Is it something that I agree with Dickie, where it's like, is it something we need to blow up about when there are so many other things in the world? I don't know. But I do feel like I'm a big believer of being aware of intentional messaging, or being aware of the fact that messaging is always created by people for the purpose of something. And so that's what I think about it. But I do agree with Dickie that I think of all the issues to be concerned about, this doesn't rank very high for me.
Yeah, I think it's very similar. Just like we're people in the room who were cooking up this idea. I think that they knew what they were doing, not trying to necessarily spread white supremacist eugenic messaging, but they're like, this is going to be controversial. We're going to get clicks. We're going to like this is going to get us talk. Like we'll be on the talk of the town. So it was, which is kind of hollow. I don't know. I
Mm.
definitely it's soulless and hollow, and it's frustrating as well.
Yeah.
I can't,
Well,
I can't believe I can't believe you'd refer to the advertising industry as soulless and hollow. That's a pretty hot take there.
well, it's interesting too because what came out of this, in addition, was oh, and I'm blanking on her name now, but there was another model who had advertised for the same company and was around 15 years old or 16 at the time, and very, very sexual, like overtly sexual advertisement. And now that same ad is being replayed as well now and getting compared to the Sydney Sweeney ad, kind of like the over sexualization of young women, in addition to like the over sexualization of Sydney Sweeney. So I felt like that was really interesting too, because it kind of brought into question not just eugenics and kind of that role of genes, but the role of the company itself in how it's portraying women and like what it wants to get out of the advertisements that it's been showing for years now.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Well, we will continue to follow this story. Sydney Sweeney seems to get a lot of the controversial coverage. We'll follow that as it continues. Let's shift gears to another story that we seemingly have, I think, covered every week on the show now for about 4 or 5 weeks. But the Epstein saga continues. But this week we're going to talk a little media literacy frame about it, not so much of the details of the case. There's been a lot of work. You can go to my Substack. I followed the Epstein saga there, and I've been kind of outlining what's happening. But to catch folks up, the Trump administration campaign had promised for a long time to be transparent about this supposed Democratic pedophilia ring, and the Epstein files were central to that claim. And then in early July, his administration said they weren't going to release it. There was an uproar by his supporters, and he tried all kinds of things to distract. Called it boring. He called people asking about it weaklings. He said there's nothing to see here. But the news media really stayed on top of him. His supporters really stayed on top of him. And I actually even kind of believed for a while there that this could be something that hurts Trump. And it still may be. But I kind of get the feeling this week that he finally found a strategy to appease his supporters while protecting himself from the fact he's in the Epstein files, which has now been reported by multiple outlets. And that strategy seems to be to shift focus to Russiagate, say that Obama fixed all this intelligence about Russia, which the Democrats did lie a lot about Russia, but there is some intelligence there. None that I think none that proves that they shifted the election, but they did release content in the U.S. And so the conservative outlets have been covering the Obama Russiagate scandal and almost barely mentioning the Epstein scandal. Media Matters did a great study on this. And then the other part of his strategy, too, is you notice the Republicans are now calling in Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, James Comey around the Epstein files. And I think his goal here is to say, I'm going to release the Epstein files, but it's going to be pinned on the Democrats. That's kind of been the framing. Legacy and Democratic leaning media are still framing this as a scandal that's going to take down the Trump administration, and kind of mentioning the Clintons almost as a footnote afterward, arguing that Trump's the one in office and Clinton hasn't been in office in seemingly 30 years or almost 30 years. So what's the big deal? I don't know. So I pay attention to those two frames. I think if you're in kind of liberal media world, you might be missing the fact that Trump's approval numbers are staying pretty steady despite this scandal. So he's not losing support, even though it feels like he's under pressure. He is losing support on areas like the economy and immigration, but that has nothing to do with the Epstein files. And he seems to have found a way to appease Republicans. Even people like Alex Jones have now come back to the fold, saying like, I trust Trump, and this is got to be some Democratic Party scandal, blah blah blah. So I don't know. What do you guys make of the framing of this?
Yeah, no, I mean, you sort of see the weaponization of a narrative based on, what your political leaning is. And I, yeah, I, Well, the media historically, like on whether it was Epstein or Russiagate, have really dropped the ball on coverage, and so it's almost like I don't expect, um, sort of the like a mea culpa to come out, or like for them to admit that they're protecting power when it was convenient, or when it's and then sort of unleashing the dogs when it's inconvenient for the opposition. Like with Russiagate, there's a lot of people who received like Pulitzer prizes for the coverage, and to admit that it's there was a lot of um maybe there wasn't much there as they were saying. And then on the flip side with Epstein, I mean, how many yeah, we covered earlier about ABC having the story before the big release came out, when sort of Jeffrey Epstein was rearrested. Like they gave up the story because they wanted access to the royal family, and there was Prince Andrew was very much implicated in the Epstein scandal. um and yeah, I wonder, I mean, I think it's such an important story. I mean, aside from the scandal, it because there's implications of how Jeffrey Epstein and this blackmail, this child, sex ring, and that could be used as blackmail, kind of has influenced our foreign policy. I mean, nothing has been, it's all alleged right now. There's no smoking gun, but you can kind of just follow the names and the money a little bit, and it's like, wow, there's really something here. Although MAGA, like Trump can never lose his support from MAGA. I mean, as it's said, like Trump can shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and still have his fans. I do wonder if the coalition that got Trump elected, this certainly for the second, Trump 2.0, if that support will wean a bit, and I think that will matter. And then, yeah, we'll see. In the midterms, if Democrats can. Well, I don't know. Everyone's kind of implicated in the Epstein scandal, so we'll see. But yeah, how do you just being? I think the media literacy lesson is just being mindful of how information is being used to take down,
Mm.
how certain narratives are being used to support or take down individuals or whole sort of wings of the party.
Yeah, I think something that bothers me about this, and this would be something that would bother me in like a student's paper. Like, I think what bothers me about it is it's like almost like a lack of awareness that they're using like a rhetorical strategy, or maybe they do know they're using this, like whataboutism, which is, well, what about them? Like, this is very much that rhetorical strategy of, I'm going to respond to an accusation by then pointing and making another accusation and raising a different issue
Mhm.
altogether, rather than addressing the actual point or anything about the accusation that's been made to you individually. And if I had a student who was writing a paper, for example, on something that they did, and they were trying to make a point about why they were innocent about something, or why this was not a big deal, and then they pointed to another completely different, completely unrelated example, I would say, why are you using this as evidence for your case when it has nothing to do with the situation that you've presented me with? So I think, like, as a teacher, this bothers me simply from like a very just basic level of the rhetorical strategy you're using is just like a logical fallacy. Like, you're pointing to another case that has nothing to do with the one that we've just brought up. And so I think what both Democrats and Republicans could get on board with is that this is pointing away from the issue and pointing towards something that's unrelated. And I think that is a rhetorical strategy that can work. But I think a part of learning media literacy, a part of learning rhetoric in being a rhetorician, is recognizing when you're being manipulated by these kinds of strategies. I think that's one of the reasons I love rhetoric so much, as being able to recognize, okay, like this strategy is being used on me as a consumer. And how can I then like bring myself back to the original problem I was worried about?
Yeah, and it makes me think too. My classes, one of the things I like to do is we learn the fallacies, and then
Mm.
I'll have them watch nightly news, or if it's a presidential debate, I'll have them watch a debate if that's happening that semester, like primary presidential debates. And I tell them, spot 20 fallacies, and they like eye roll, like, oh God, I have to watch like how much news, how much debate. Inevitably they always come back and they're like, oh, it only took about 5-7 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's so many. And sometimes like there's three in a
Yeah.
sentence, and they're
Yeah.
like, oh, this was actually a really easy exercise. I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, we don't have to do too much of a segment on this, but I just kind of wanted to get your guys' take on it because we all live here in California, albeit I think we're all transplants, right? Aren't we all born outside of the state?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But anyways, we live in California nonetheless. And it was announced that Rupert Murdoch's News Corp will be bringing a California version of the New York Post to California in 2026. And presumably it's going to have that mix of kind of tabloid gossip journalism with the veneer of investigative journalism that the New York Post brings. I don't know. What do you think? Because I think Murdoch. It's interesting. He's going into one of the biggest liberal markets. I think probably the goal there is to change some minds and capitalize on some of the criticisms of Democrats in the state. But
Mhm.
I don't know, man. This state is since the 1990s when Republicans tried to attack Latinx folks. Ever since then, the state has really been kind of anti-Republican. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, well, to your point, good luck. I think that I guess there are maybe some pockets that are certainly a little bit red or like rural town. I mean, I know, yeah, driving through the state, I've seen some signs that are very, um hard against like Newsom and some of his policies. I think it's more the agricultural section of our of the state. But yeah, I mean, I will it actually change any minds? I don't know. I feel like people are already pretty much set on what they believe. If anything, it's just going to stoke the culture war or like stoke disagreement. It'll make the people like harden into the sort of factions that they're already in and really keep the tribal mentality stronger. Like that's probably yeah, I mean, I don't have much faith in Rupert Murdoch being one who goes about the world on the crusade of like finding the truth. It's more about amassing lots of money and influence, and this will just be a way to to kind of keep going strong down that path and
Mhm.
divide more. It doesn't seem like it's not like a media that's actually cares about ordinary people. It's wants to make us more angry, hate each other more. So hopefully it doesn't do very well. But
Yeah, I don't see much coming from it. Maybe simply for the fact that, like, I think one of the strongest foundation points for California in terms of the political party is in my perspective, like as an educator, is the education system. Like, I do think we are like, have such a big system, both on the UC scale, the CSU scale, the community colleges are some of the largest. Like, they
There's
just
113
yeah.
community colleges. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just think we have such a big group of people who are invested into education. And I know nobody's going to like to hear this, but I know a lot of people who go in and get an education also tend to be on one political side rather than the other. And I do think that is because of developing these critical thinking skills. A lot more colleges nowadays, too, are integrating more critical thinking versus just kind of like indoctrinating or like giving information that they think people want to hear. And I do think that being able to give people those critical thinking skills is very much rooted in allowing people to come to conclusions themselves and be able to recognize illogical fallacies, recognize rhetorical strategies. And I think all of those things allow people to kind of navigate in society and make these decisions. So I think because of education in California that I personally don't see something like what's happening in 2026 making a huge difference.
Yeah, and there's also, I mean, in addition to the education skills, right? There's also a ideological component to it as well.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, liberals always hide from this, but we have to admit this fact. Like, the schools are locations of socialization. Like, they do socialize, and so when you have, like, I saw one poll that said like 90% of college professors identify as liberal. Like,
Yeah.
there's some ideological underpinnings to that. There's some parts of the system that are contributing to that. But no, I agree. I think that regardless where it comes from, I think your point still stands, right? The formal education aspect of California is probably going to lean liberal, at least in the near future, unless, who knows, maybe Trump's rewiring of the education system will change that.
Mm.
Hey folks, Nolan Higdon here, interrupting real quick just to ask a favor. Can you please like, follow, comment, and subscribe to the podcast? It really helps get the show out to more people. If you also have a couple extra bucks in your pocket, please consider becoming a paid subscriber. You can go to patreon.com/disinfodetox, and you become a paid subscriber for as little as $5 a month. It really helps get the show to more people, allows me to bring in more people and create more content. You can find a link to that in the show description. All right, let's get back to the show. All right, well, Dickie, I believe we're over to you for the next segment
Let's
of
have
Truth
a
or Troll.
little quick detox break here with our truth or troll segment. So I've got to read a headline, and I think this week I can read one headline to like I'll read a headline to Sydney, and you can say whether it's a truth or troll, and then I'll switch and I'll give Nolan a headline. We'll sort of try this. Okay.
Head to head, Sydney.
So yeah, I'm gonna read a headline, and then Sydney and Nolan will have to guess if it's real or just total internet garbage. So first up, I'll do Sydney. So an AI center guzzles 463 million gallons of water. Now residents are asked to cut back on showers. Truth or troll?
Does it say where it's at?
In Texas.
In Texas. Okay. Truth?
You are correct. Microsoft has a Stargate AI data center in Abilene, and it needs the water. So I guess this is the AI technocracy we signed up for.
Woof. Yeah. No, I've been reading so many like AI environmental articles, and I'm like, that sounds true, but I really don't want it to be already.
Yeah. I know. It's
No.
like I don't yeah, I wonder if the AI overlords are thinking about that. Like, do we have enough? I mean, they have dreams of, this future
Oh,
where AI takes over, and do we even have the resources to do it?
Yeah.
these egomaniacs aren't thinking about that. They think they're gonna like fly to Mars or something.
Yeah. Yeah, fly to Mars, or they all have their underground bunkers as well, so they'll either live in the center of the earth or light years away. Okay, let's do another. This is for Nolan. Truth or troll? This is another AI one. Truth or troll? Hallucinations and AI are oh wait, sorry. I lost my headline here. 1 second. Well, okay, I'll give you another one. I don't have the headline for that, but here we go. Okay, truth or troll? Mexico makes biometric identifier mandatory for all citizens.
Gosh, I was down there during COVID. They did have pretty like restrictive policies, even compared to the U.S. I'm gonna go truth on that. Is it true?
It is true.
Yeah.
It is true. It is no longer optional. It is mandatory, and it seems like something that is in a sci-fi movie, but now it's policy.
Ted Kaczynski
Okay.
is rolling over in his grave. See, told you.
Yeah. No, some of these folks are. Okay, Sydney, truth or troll? The Heritage Foundation proposes climate tax for countries that complain too much about global warming.
What does complain too much mean? I'm just like trying to know how you could categorize that. Or oh my god. I just want it to be troll. Can we say troll?
Yes, that is fake.
Thank God.
'Cause yeah, I think climate change is a problem, and people complaining about it or having concerns definitely is not, because this is where we live. Um, okay, we'll do Nolan. Truth or troll? China declares TikTok a national treasure.
I'm gonna go troll.
This is troll.
Okay.
No, I mean, they haven't officially declared TikTok a national treasure. But yeah, I was thinking about how US lawmakers would say that, TikTok is a national security
Mm.
threat, but China probably um, thinks very highly of it. And yeah, I feel like both countries know the power of TikTok. But it just, yeah, if who holds the control is what it depends upon. Okay, this will be for the both of you, kind of a tiebreaker. You both have two. So the final headline is AI hallucinations are getting worse and they're here to stay.
I'm going
Troll.
true on that. Truth.
True.
Yes, that is true. I actually didn't know what AI hallucinations are. It's when
Oh.
like the chatbot confidently generates something false and misleading. And yeah, just kind of like, yeah, these systems are not built for truth necessarily, just to sound true. And
Mhm.
yeah, I was like, wow, I remember being a student and like staying up to 2 a.m. bullshitting my essays in college, drinking a lot of Red Bull and whatnot. And now I have a chatbot that can do it for me. So
Yeah.
all right, y'all. You really did well today. You
Yay.
outsmarted it's a clean sweep for y'all. You outsmarted the
Woo!
trolls.
We're
So
Sydney,
getting
we're becoming so media literate.
yeah, yeah, I know. Y'all should be fact checkers for Facebook or something.
Oh, yes. I think that leads us into a good media literacy moment too. And actually, Diggy, it's perfect because your discussion on hallucinations is actually helpful for thinking about this next segment too, which is source checking. So I was I don't know if working with AI is a good term, but kind of like checking AI this weekend when I was writing an article for my Substack. I had been introduced to this new AI system that was essentially a literacy, like kind of like a literature review helper, and it can also help summarize peer reviewed and scholarly articles. So I was like, okay, but can it do it better than a PhD student, a scholar? Can it essentially do the work for me? So I had it summarize these articles, but then I also went to the articles and went in to see if that information that it had summarized was accurate. Was it taken out of context? Does it actually match up with the source that it gave me? So when I use things or AI tools like ChatGPT, I constantly get hallucinating citations. I constantly get fake citations. I get information that's completely taken out of context. It'll say things like, oh, yes, social media has made 90% of adults depressed. And then you go to the study and there was 3 people in the study. And so it's information that's completely taken out of context. And so some of the things that I think are extremely important as we're getting into the AI age, as we're getting into really discovering like what is and is not useful about it, is continuing to be vigilant source checkers and continuing to constantly be interested and engaged with what the facts are. And I think part of that is doing your own research always. And if you're not going to do your own research, I want to encourage people not to repost or share things that they have not double checked. I think this is one of the most common issues that we have right now in the social media front, is that people reshare, repost, retweet things that they have not verified that the source is not contextually in the correct space. And so I think it's so important that if you don't have the time, the energy, the space to check the things that you are resharing, to not reshare them at all. And so I think that's my biggest takeaway from this media literacy moment is source checking, fact checking, and then if that's not within your capacity, which is completely understandable, not resharing those things.
Excellent tip. I think that's a great solution to a common problem. A lot of people searching for content. Kind of Dickie made that joke about ChatGPT writing the paper late at night. I mean, you shouldn't go that route, as you pointed out. But even if you're going to, you better fact check it, because artificial intelligence is artificial unintelligence. Great.
Yeah, which is fine in some context, in the sense that, like, if you just need something to write something, but if you're writing something or needing something to share or dispel information, and that information could be harmful or a narrative that is going to be misleading, that's where I think it becomes a real issue.
All right. Well, thank you, Sydney and Dickie. I believe we are sidebarring it.
Yes. Welcome back to the sidebar, where we take a sharp left turn into something weird, wild, or worrying. And on last week's episode, we covered the season 27 premiere of South Park, which was the episode where Trump tries to seduce Satan with his micropenis. And it was classic South Park, absurd, scathing, and uncompromising. But wait, actually, someone may have been compromising, because it turns out the episode was delayed by 2 full weeks. And originally slated for July 9th, the episode didn't air until July 23rd. And according to a statement from the show's creators, the holdup had something to do with Paramount, Comedy Central's parent company, finalizing its $8 billion merger with Skydance, a deal that requires FCC approval from the Trump administration. And Paramount has a track record of playing it safe when there's money on the line. Trump sued 60 Minutes in 2024 over a Kamala Harris interview, claiming that there was deceptive editing. Paramount, which also owns CBS, didn't fight back. They just decided to settle for $16 million. And then more recently, in April, reports surfaced that Paramount chairwoman Sherry Redstone had asked 60 Minutes to delay segments that were critical of Trump and also of Israel's genocide in Gaza until after the merger cleared regulatory hurdles. And it's not just Paramount. In June, ABC fired the veteran journalist Terry Moran after he criticized Trump advisor Stephen Miller on social media. And ABC is owned by Disney, which also controls ESPN. And ESPN is currently negotiating a massive media deal with the NFL. And this deal also requires government approval. So a clear pattern is taking shape. Corporate media companies neuter themselves to protect their profits. And as this happens, it's becoming more dangerous to be a reporter on the ground. During the LA ICE riots and the No Kings protests this summer, dozens of reporters were shot at with rubber bullets. They were arrested, or they even had their equipment destroyed, despite clearly identifying as press. And even away from the protest zones, more and more investigative reporters are finding themselves landing on FBI watch lists, and they're digging into government contracts, law enforcement abuses. They're not spreading disinformation. They're just publishing the inconvenient truths. And so this is the bitter irony of our media moment. The more the media outlets censor themselves, the more vulnerable they become. And I think their self-censorship is kind of normalizing a culture where adversarial journalism is seen not as essential but expendable. Even worse, maybe a threat. And so when the media abandons its watchdog role, the attacks from the outside become inevitable and excusable. And this is the double death of a free press: the slow strangulation from within, and then brute force from without. And unfortunately, the even the safeguards are disappearing. The nonprofit, publicly funded journalism, which is the counterweight to corporate control, that's being dismantled too. Just like the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which has been defunded by Congress and will be shutting down. And so this clears the way for a media landscape shaped entirely by corporate interest and political obedience. So where does that leave us? Thank God for the internet. For all its chaos, it still, at least for now, gives us access to independent voices. But access alone isn't enough either. Even independent platforms can be co opted and manipulated. They can cozy up to the powerful, offering softball interviews to billionaires or to warmongers and any type of political influencer. And they do this without any pushback. So instead of the corporate merger controlling the message, it's algorithms. People are clout chasing, pretending to be journalists. And that's where media literacy comes in. Because when the press can no longer act freely, we have to become our own analysts, our own critics, and our own watchdogs. And it's media literacy that makes this possible. It's, about following the money and reading between the lines, and as Sydney just taught us and talked about, checking our sources, being vigilant in that regard. We have to ask the hard questions like who benefits from this, and the framing of the story, and what pressures made this story and shaped it, and what's being left out, who's being left out. So in a media system that's collapsing from both ends, the top-down censorship and the bottom-up erosion, media literacy is our survival, and it's democracy's last line of defense. So shout out to media literacy, and I'm happy to be doing this work with y'all.
Thanks,
Keep on
Dick.
going.
Good job, Dickie. And yeah, I think it's an important story you're telling there, because ironically, we've critiqued corporate media for decades in this country about how the money has a negative influence on the type of stories that are told and not told. And the argument was, yeah, but that's what keeps them independent. It keeps them out of government control. But I think the Trump administration has just poked a hole in that argument and illustrated that vast amounts of cash that depend on the government being your friend give the government leverage when they want it to be able to take away that money and dictate coverage. So I don't know. I think it's a really interesting topic that I think media critics, as well as people in media, are going to have to wrestle with. They can't argue anymore that like their for-profit model keeps them independent. If anything, it keeps them vulnerable to the government. Well, I want to thank you all for tuning in to the Disinfo Detox. We are the Media Literacy Wrecking Crew. We do this every week. Sydney Sullivan is here with a new media literacy moment. Dickie is here with a sidebar. We always have a little bit of fun and cover the stories that matter. Please check out the description. We would love it if you would become a Patreon subscriber. If you have a couple extra bucks in your pocket, please do donate to us. If not, just share online, comment, like, subscribe, share it with that uncle. You know which one I'm talking about. All right, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next week.
Bye, Detoxers.
See you next week, Detoxers.
Hey, Detoxers, this is the Disinfo Detox. If you believe in media literacy for all, help us keep going. Become a paid subscriber at patreon.com/disinfodetox. There's also plenty of free ways to support. You can like, comment, follow, or share. Every little bit helps. Thanks for supporting the Disinfo Detox, where media literacy meets breaking news.